The human body has millions of nerve cells all scattered all throughout the body. And each of these nerve cells all work together to transmit signals throughout your body, so your brain has an idea of what's going on in the environment around you or within your body. The nerves all connect to one thing, and that is the nervous system. The nervous system is obviously one of the body systems, but what it does, it takes all the nerve cells and fibers in your body and it transmits signals through your body, and it lets you do things like talking, like thinking, like breathing or walking, just everyday things that we do. And it even does things that we don't think about, like it helps our blood flow through our body. It helps our lungs expand and compress. It helps everything without us thinking about it, and that's basically what the nervous system is. The nervous system helps our body function. That's the main thing. So within those millions of cells, obviously a signal has to transmit from one cell to another cell. So as you see in the neuron next to me, there is a cell body, and then on that cell body there are millions of little things that branch off of the cell body. Now, from that cell body, the signal has to get to that cell body from another neuron. Now, when the signal comes to the cell body, through the dendrites. And then once it gets to the cell body then sends it out to another neuron, and it sends it out through the axon. Now, as you see in mine, there's a lot of different things, but some of the signals come in at odd times, and some of the signals go out at odd times. So it's very strange, but we'll get into that later. So basically, when all the neurons are transmitting signals in throughout your body, they're connecting in some type of way for some type of reason, even if it's just like to get your heart to get your blood flow. The nerves are always communicating with each other no matter what. So when the nerves do communicate with each other, they do it through a process, and that process comes with 3 steps. The first step that it goes through is the sensory input. Now, what the sensory input is, I can give you an example, like a spider is crawling on your leg. So basically, whenever you feel a spider crawling across your leg, immediately what you do is you kick it off. I know I do, because I'm scared of spiders. Whenever you feel a spider crawling across your leg, you kick it off within probably 3 seconds. Now, within those 3 seconds, that's where these 3 steps occur. Now, just feeling the spider crawling across your leg, that's the sensory input. So sensory nerves are working together to tell you, hey, there's something on my leg. Then, once those sensory nerves get triggered, it then sends a signal up to your brain, and your brain starts to put 2 and 2 together, like, I'm outside, oh, this isn't normal, oh, there might be a spider on me, and that is called the integration. That's where your brain puts 2 and 2 together. So then, from there, from the integration step, your brain sends a signal back down to wherever that spider is, to wherever that muscle is, and then when you kick your leg, that is called the motor output. With the nervous system, there are 2 parts of the nervous system. There's the central nervous system, and then there's the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system houses the brain and the spinal cord, and that is the main things that a human body needs, because the brain and the spinal cord are what control pretty much everything when it comes to walking, to talking, to breathing, to thinking. It pretty much controls everything. Now, the peripheral nervous system is everything else. So it's everything from your legs to your arms to your hands to your feet. It's everything else. It's what your brain and your spinal cord tell your other muscles to do. So it's the brain and the spinal cord are pretty much the main control center of your whole entire body. So like I was saying earlier, the 3 functions, the sensory input, the integration, and the motor output. So what happens when one of those sensory nerves or one of those motor nerves are damaged? They can be damaged from a lot of ways. They can be damaged from trauma, from an infection, or from a disease. They can even be damaged from all 3, really. So my neuron next to me, it's damaged due to trauma, and then that trauma led to a disease. Now I'm giving the scenario of a person getting into a car crash, and then they didn't have their seatbelt on, so they ran straight through the windshield. Their head first, they went straight through the windshield. And then when that person hit the windshield, it caused their brain to swell up because it's so much trauma to the head, the brain cannot handle that. So once the brain started to swell up, that's when the seizures started happening. Now, when a person has multiple seizures, that's called epilepsy, because epilepsy is a seizure disorder, and they can get that from any type of traumatic injury. They can also get it from like prenatal injury, or they can get it from like brain tumors or infections, or even ingestion of like toxins and stuff like that. So in this case, they did get it from a traumatic injury, which is going through the windshield. So once that person had their seizures, yes, it can be controlled. About 80% of all epilepsy cases can be controlled. Whenever you have a seizure, the blood flow to the brain gets cut off. Now, when the blood flow gets cut off, the dendrites on the axons start to die. The dendrites can't transmit signals no more. They can't get from point A to point B. They can't stop anything. So that's when the dendrites start to die, and that's what's happening to my neuron next to me. So when the dendrites start to die, the whole neuron starts to die. And then once the whole neuron starts to die, it can't regenerate itself. It's basically dead tissue. So if that's left untreated, eventually all the neurons will die, and then once all of the neurons die, it's pretty much the end of that person's life, because if you don't have the nervous system, if you can't have nerves getting a message from point A to point B, then that person will pass away. Now with seizures, some people can get it in various ways. So if they got it if they got it prenatally, like when they were in the womb, they could be born with it, so they could have this disorder their whole entire life. So if they have this disorder their whole entire life, they can get like symptoms like strong odors right before they have a seizure, or nausea, or they could get like rapid, overwhelming anxiety right before they get seizures. And that's usually how they know. The person usually knows their body enough to know when they're about to have a seizure. But unfortunately, if you do have a traumatic trauma, like the patient did in my case, then that's just something they have to deal with until the doctors know what they can do. Hopefully they can get treatment before the blood flows like cuts off too much and the dendrites start to die, because if the dendrites start to die, like I said, the neuron can't regenerate itself. If it progresses, then that patient can die.